Hello everyone and welcome to the second devlog about my city building game. Today I want to talk more about the road system, which I have been focusing on over the last 3 weeks. You may look at the screen right now and wonder, wait, the game looks exactly the same as it was in the first video. And yeah, it does, almost, roads are smaller. Yeah, I know, 3 weeks of work and only visible change is that roads are smaller. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. Okay, bear with me. There is more to say. So, in the beginning, I made the decision that smallest possible dimension for any entity in the game would be 1 tile. A car would take 1 tile, so road naturally would need at least 2, as it has to go both ways. And I regretted this idea ever since. As almost every time I wanted to spawn a road, there was some issue like this, or that, or this again, or there was a gap between roads, or the roads were spawning on top of each other. It's a nightmare. And I figured there are 3 ways to deal with it. I could write some complex logic to prevent each of these such cases. I could leave it as it is and make players hate my game. Or I could reduce the road size to 1 tile. First idea seemed very unpleasant to do, so I skipped this. Second approach might not be the best business decision long term, and so I went with the third solution. Right, so I guess I can just change the road dimensions in my models config and everything will magically fall into the place, right? No. Well, that didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. With this small change, I dug myself quite a hole and it took me 2 weeks to climb out of it. After short investigation, I figured out that cars have no clue where to go, streets are not forming anymore, buildings lost their addresses, and nav mesh is completely broken. It's utter chaos. So, with so many systems broken, where do we even start fixing it? I started with redefining the connection between grid and cars. Let me explain how the grid works first. It is a 2-dimensional array storing some data for each cell. Every cell has a value for entity, base, their optional references, and street ID. If I want to spawn new object on the grid, it performs checks if there are other entities in selected tiles and if there is a correct base for the object. If object can be spawned, the ghost will be green, and if not, it will be red. Cars previously were marked as grid entities, but it didn't really make sense as cars and other means of transport are there only to display flow between buildings. Tracking and updating position of moving car looked cute on the minimap, but in the end it's just a waste of resources. I removed this logic. Cars are still spawned on the grid, but not really in it, if that makes sense. Another problem is that roads don't know which way they face anymore. When there was 1 lane per tile, I could just store this information with road piece referenced by it. But now each road piece has 2 lanes, facing opposite directions. Cars just spawn in the middle of it with no clue where to go. This is not how traffic normally looks like. To fix it, I had to change how I define the start and target position of the car. Instead of just using grid positions, I now use address struct that contains much more data about its position and direction. Each building also stores a list of addresses, so when the car is going from one building to another, in reality it just goes to that building address on the road. Luckily for me, the navigation code didn't need much work. I still organized road pieces into streets to make it more efficient, and I just needed to add additional step of splitting them again into 1-directional lanes. As last step, I search for the joints between lanes. Then, the connected lanes are then fed to the navigation graph. Adjusting navigation was the last step of bringing the game back to life. Traffic looks okay, most of the time. I have to say that reworking all those systems was not the most pleasant thing to do, but it was important to get it right. It's one of the fundamentals of the game, and if I had to rework it later in the development cycle, I'm sure it would be much harder to do. Apart from this, I managed to add some useful features. I finally added click and hold functionality to span multiple road tiles in one go. It turned out to be quite easy to implement, except the player could scatter the road tiles all around the map, which is not ideal. So I came back to this and added some checks, and now you can only spawn road tiles in a straight line, dependent on the road angle. I also added time control to the game. I can now slow the action down, or make it go really fast if I need to. There is also a pause button in the game, so player can do all sorts of nasty things, like removing piece of roads. Haha, funny. Let's see what happens. Okay. There is also a check if you're in debt, but with no real consequences. Like a proper city mayor, you can just borrow more money and keep spending. That's a good life. That's all for this devlog. In the next one I hope to have more visual changes, as I am slowly getting tired of looking at the same map all the time. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Goodbye.